Am I the a-hole for not giving my mom's husband a chance to do father of the bride things? My mom and her husband, Jim, met and married when I was 16. Jim's okay. We didn't have a bad relationship, but on my end it wasn't an overly close one either. He wanted more from a relationship with me. He'd lost his only daughter years before I met him and never had more kids. I lost my dad when I was very young and never had a father-daughter relationship with anyone after my dad. Not that I couldn't have. My mom had boyfriends throughout my life, but I was a daddy's girl and I never wanted to fill that with someone else. I did have father figures in uncles and grandfathers, so I wasn't without male role models. I just didn't have another dad, if you will. Jim and I spent time together when I still lived with my mom. He offered to help me with college, but I had that taken care of. I told him at the time not to sweat it and that I didn't need him to come in and pay my way like a dad, and that I had other people for that stuff. At the time, I thought he felt obligated, but looking back, I know he was hoping to be more of a dad to me than a mom's husband. He lost his daughter when she was so young, and he'd been young too, since he was a teen dad, and I think he wanted more than anything to be a dad again. But things were fine. We didn't fight or anything, but I never developed a closeness with him. But he built a lot of hopes around me. Some of them I already let him down on without realizing. Like when I moved off campus and into an apartment, he had wanted me to ask him for advice. And when I started dating my fiancé, I didn't get his opinion on him. I also didn't ask my fiancé to do the old-fashioned asking for the parents' blessing. Really, I don't consider my mom and Jim my parents as a collective. My mom is and Jim's her spouse, but not my parent. I also turned down Jim's offer to pay for the wedding. This came right after we announced, and it felt greedy to take his money when Jim's not someone I'm that close with and I like him enough, but I don't love him. So I didn't want to be a user and take something huge like that. But the father of the bride stuff is where he's upset enough for my mom to speak up for him. Jim had wanted to be asked to do something that traditionally the father of the bride would do. Pay for the wedding, like mentioned, walk me down the aisle, have a father-daughter dance, or doing a father of the bride speech. He was asked if he'd like to do a toast with a few other family members, but it stung that he wasn't asked to be one of the parents. His family also does a tradition where the bride and her dad get a special photo taken, and he wanted me to incorporate that into the wedding. We're not talking a standard photo either, but a really sentimental one with a more emotional pose. My mom told me how much being given the father of the bride role would mean to him, and she said even a couple of those would be enough to truly make his day. Apparently, Jim had told her he felt so lost hearing about the wedding planning and realizing he's basically just her plus one and not a true equal in the wedding. Mom said it should be one more practical thing, walking down the aisle, and one more emotional thing. She said the photograph would be the most meaningful, and I told her that's the one I'd be least likely to do. I said it would be incredibly awkward. She told me it wasn't fair to say that when he wouldn't feel that way. She said it would be the most special thing I could do for him, so he could experience what the other dads in his family experienced. I got a text later that night from Jim telling me he'd always dreamed of having that photo with his daughter, and how we both lost the person we originally were supposed to do it with, but it would make it extra special and meaningful to do it together for that reason. And how he was so glad I had decided to let him be a dad again after losing his only child. I never agreed to do it, but my mom told him I would, and not only that, but the part about him being a dad, I made it clear I wasn't okay with it, which upset Jim and angered my mom. Am I the a-hole?